Arthur in Decatur, Illinois. Thanks for waiting. Hello?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air.
Oh, this is Arthur, and I'm talking to you then, right?
Yes.
Okay, first caller. Well, I'm delighted to be on your show. I enjoy listening to you. I've listened to you for some time. I describe myself as a skeptical secularist. I just wanted to talk about faith and how atheists and theists seem to talk past each other sometimes. Now, I've heard Matt kind of rail against people who claim to have faith because there is generally the notion that you're believing something lacking evidence. And I understand that point of view. I was listening to the podcast Unbelievable with Matt. You had debated on that Christian-centric show.
Yeah.
From out of England. I was curious to know what your take was on it. I thought it was the moderator was quite good, and it was quite fair. And I don't know if what your impression was.
I don't have any complaints about the moderator. I thought some of it went pretty well.
Yeah.
But I also thought, David Robertson, the guy I debated, had to write a blog post explaining to both theists and atheists who thought that he was just being an ass through the whole thing, explaining why he was being an ass. Other than that, I don't really have any objections. There's always room for improvement for everybody on all sides.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. But I did listen to a couple of points that he made between you, and I thought sometimes I wonder if, as a result of these debates, you find that in hindsight you think of some other points that could be made.
Every single time.
Oh, okay.
When I leave the show and drive home, I replay the entire show in my head and think of all the things that I could have said and would have said last week. Granted, I was pretty high on Benadryl that week, but there were points to be made about the fact that the Hebrew language did have a word for sphere, and that the Greeks came up with atomic theory 500 years before the verses that were being talked about. Stuff that either didn't occur to me or didn't have the facts straight in my head. Whatever. When I leave a debate, I'm replaying that as well. There were mistakes made during every single debate that I've ever done, and the goal is to try to correct them and do better next time.
Yes, and I went through the same process after that debate, thinking what could have been said. But my impression was that he was more inclined to debate. I think your approach was more in the realm of discussion. So you were there's a little bit of.
It can sometimes appear that way because what he was doing and what some other people have done is attempt to shift the burden of proof.
Right.
You could have atheists that run around presenting good arguments not only for why it's reasonable to not believe that a God exists, but for why it might even be reasonable to believe that there are no gods. But doing so kind of shifts the focus away from the fact that these people believe something and they cannot and have not demonstrated, or cannot or have not demonstrated that their beliefs are rational, reasonable, and supported by evidence.
Right. Let me bring out just a couple of things that I had in mind that are unrelated to each other. Number one is I hope it's a constructive criticism of your show. I love when you are engaged with people who seem to have some sort of intellect and are able to reason well. Last week you had a caller that you got in a lengthy discussion with, and very early on in the call, and I think you probably remember this caller because you were getting a little frustrated. I don't think it would be harmful to shorten the engagement when you're discussing with somebody who's apparently whose thinking is so impaired that you're not going to get anywhere with them. Have you had that thought at all?
It's a difficult, so you figure most call-in programs, you're going to get 30 seconds, maybe a minute.
Yeah.
We do tend to have longer discussions. It's difficult. First of all, we've had prank callers that have called over and over again.
I've heard your host show enough, but I get frustrated listening when I know you should just end it a lot sooner because you must have other callers that are a little more interesting than the ones you have.
Well, but see, that's the other thing is I don't necessarily know that any other, like there's two other people on hold right now. I have no idea if they're more interesting or better reasoners than you are.
Well, I hope I can make this worth your while. I take your point on the issue of faith. I wanted to get your take on this. It was a very interesting debate on Unbelievable Podcast, in which the fellow's name was the atheist was Professor Baglosio or something like that. I don't know if the name rings any bells.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point that he made against the theists with whom he was debating gave an analogy that I thought was quite interesting that illustrates how faith may be relevant. And that was this, that you're about to jump off an airplane, your instructor packs your parachute. Just before you jump, if you believe he packed your parachute correctly, that's not going to determine whether you jump. You have faith in him, and that's what leads to the decision to jump.
And I don't think it's fair to, okay, there are a number of different connotations for the word faith.
Yeah.
And what the theists are doing is equating their faith with other uses of faith that may seem reasonable. And so I just don't use the word entirely. I don't think that I have faith in the religious sense in anything, and I don't think jumping out of an airplane with a packed chute is faith in the same way that the religious have faith.
Okay.
Because first of all, you're responsible for checking that your chute is packed.
Well, having actually jumped out of an airplane with parachute, I agree that's not faith. I mean, have you ever jumped out of an airplane?
Me, but I mean, if you don't know how to pack your air chute.
Okay, I don't know how to pack my chute either.
Yeah.
But that's still not an act of faith.
That your backpack has been correctly.
That my chute has been packed correctly.
Yeah, so what's happening here is that they're using a definition of faith that means anytime you're not absolutely certain about something, you're exercising faith. And that's just ridiculous, because there's pretty much nothing that we're absolutely certain about, or at least I don't see any reason to think we're absolutely certain about. If I'm going to jump out of a plane, well, first of all, I'm probably not going to jump out of a plane.
I'm not going to get pushed.
That's because you're faithless, Matt.
It's because I don't have a high enough confidence level to make it worthwhile. But if I was forced to, I mean, if there was no other choice, then I'm not taking a leap of faith. I'm doing what I need to do, and I'm hoping that things turn out well. But it's not that I necessarily believe or that I am absolutely certain that my chute's going to open. This is the equivocation fallacy. They're saying anytime that you're not absolutely certain, you're exercising faith. And what I'm saying is there are reasonable certainties. There are degrees of being convinced and being reasonable about something that don't even come anywhere near absolute certainty and yet are still viable. And religious belief is nowhere near that. They haven't even demonstrated that there's a there there.
Yeah.
And yet they're trying to claim that, well, you're not absolutely certain about this. I mean, it's like saying that I'm not absolutely certain that the brakes on my car work, and so that this is equivalent to gambling at a craps table, where I don't know what the outcome of the die roll is going to be. Those two things are not equivalent.
I take your point, but I am still comfortable in saying, at least it does have meaning to me to say I have faith in my own judgment and in my own convictions.
Okay.
And this is not religion. So I think to some extent there's a little semantic discrepancy between the two. But I take your point about in the religious context. By the way, the Oxford English Dictionary, according to the theist position, does not talk about evidence in the definition of faith is absence of evidence.
Yeah, and I couldn't matter because dictionaries aren't authorities on meaning. They describe usage, and so you're going to find different things in different dictionaries.
Right.
But the reason is, if you're comfortable using the word, by all means. I'm not, and I think for very good reason, because if you don't use the word, if you continually focus on their usage and use some other words for what you're meaning, then you avoid the equivocation fallacy. As soon as you start using the word, you're allowing for confusion and the equivocation fallacy.
Yeah, the only context I'll use is, I have found to use it is not only religious, but in just those two instances. By the way, on the subject of morality, and you can tell me if time has run out, this is something that has really intrigued me for a while, and that springs from your debate with this David, whose last name eludes me, on the Unbelievable podcast, in which he talked about Auschwitz.
Yeah.
I am toying with the idea that something that atheists kind of shy away from, because they're kind of accused of reducing morality to nothing more than survival of the fittest from the theist position, as opposed to
I don't know that that's anybody's. I mean, that's kind of
I'm not stating it artfully.
way out there. It's
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
that I would argue for. As a matter of fact, the survival of the fittest is a term that's been misunderstood and misused for a couple centuries
Which
now.
is my point, which is the point that I want to make. I'm almost thinking that our morality is fairly consistent with those actions which are consistent with our survival as a species. But
Yeah, Sam Harris puts it as well-being, as do I.
yeah,
But it's not,
that's fine.
It's not that simplistic survival of the fittest thing.
By the way, I have a couple of I have a couple of pet peeves that are that really don't require a response, but maybe you've heard.
Then it's probably best if you just send an email to tv@atheist-community.org, and we can look at the pet peeves there, because I've got a bunch of other callers waiting.
Well, thank you for taking my call, and I appreciate it.
Sure,
All
thanks,
right,
Arthur.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.